suddenly a useful NBA player. Stunningly, I didn't ever think I'd see that.
I think it was only 11 years in where he finally figured it out his way out. It's not, take your time, buddy. You're still when you're 7'3", you can take your time, I guess. But yeah, super easy. But second half of the season, you see Cleveland struggling. They coming into the All-Star break, they weren't necessarily the hottest team. Boston's creeping on by them. They're only 3 games behind. Do you see anything that Boston can do in the second half of the season to overtake Cleveland and get that number 1 seed, or is it just going to be Cleveland all the way?
No, I don't see that. Because if that happens, LeBron's going to be like, hey, Tyronn Lue, I'm playing 45 minutes a game and I lose the first seed. Like, this is just not going to happen. It's not going to be. I think if Boston had, actually made a trade today, you could have seen something, but Danny Ainge continued his annual tradition of talking a big game and doing nothing. So, just going to roll up with the top 3 seed and hope to get lucky in the playoffs. But no, I think Cleveland's going to be number 1. Yeah.
What do you think of Indiana was looking to make a move to move Paul George, and he was the rumors were saying that he wasn't going to move unless he was going to either stay in Indiana or go to LA. Is it too soon to part ways with your franchise player just only about 15 months after his horrific knee injury or leg injury? And is there any way to salvage the Pacers at this point?
I think now would have been too soon because you still have a year and a half. But I think if come the summertime, if it's not looking good with prospects for bringing in talent, I think you trade him. Because the problem with waiting is that it becomes I don't know. What am I trying to say here? The longer you wait, the less return you get, right? So Boogie Cousins, even though he still has another year on the contract after this, but they waited so long, they didn't have any leverage, and they got nothing. The same thing is going to happen for the Sixers with Okafor or Noel. You don't have leverage. So if you go into to next year and you get to the trade deadline and Paul George isn't coming back, and now someone's going to rent him for 3 months, they're not going to give you anything for it. So I think you got to move. If you are truly confident he's not coming back to you, you got to get him out as soon as possible. Because I don't think that the Pacers are going to really draw in any big names to turn around the franchise and elevate them to what they were 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
no, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. I think Paul George, as a whole, again, he's a great player, probably top 15 player in the league when completely healthy. It's the problem that there's the surrounding pieces around him aren't getting the job done. Granted, the East overall has significantly improved over the last couple of years. You have, Boston making some trades, the Wizards having an amazing season somehow, and then Toronto, again, a Western Conference finalist a year ago, still in the top 4. And Atlanta still, again, around there, only a couple of years removed from a number 1 seed in the East. So, again, it's not that it's maybe necessarily Indiana's the worst. It's just that, again, it's a competitive Eastern Conference, unlike a couple of years ago, where the 6, 7, and 8 seed had losing records. So it just seems that it's more competitive now in the East.
I think that we didn't talk about it earlier, but I actually think Toronto made an interesting deal this trade deadline. You got Serge, you got PJ Tucker, and they're both can shoot 3. They're really good at defense. I feel like they're going to be I know they've sort of tailed off as the season's going on. But I think they're going to I think they might get back to even maybe the conference finals this year. Those are I was very interested with those trades.
So then, covering the East, then who would expectations? I'm assuming you said Cleveland's going to win the number 1 seed. Who's the team that's going to play them the best in the Eastern Conference Finals? Whether it be Boston, Washington, Toronto, or anybody else on the list.
Oh, that's a tough question because it has been so long since they were played well in the Eastern Conference. I don't think it's the Wizards just because they're not deep enough. They don't, their starting 5 can play well, but you put a bench in and it's trash. I think probably Toronto, honestly, if they were to get there. I just feel like Boston has become so reliant on Isaiah, who's awesome and having an incredible year. But, if they get to the conference finals and Isaiah's going off. It's going to be like, oh, hey, LeBron, you're going to cover Isaiah Thomas now, and then he's going to do nothing for the rest of the game. And, like, after that, Boston tails off in their fourth quarter scoring, I think. So, I guess these conference finals, I think Toronto has the best shot, but I also don't think any of the teams have a very good shot.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is Cleveland and everybody else. And again, rumors going saying right now that Darren Williams is already bought out of his contract in Dallas, so it looks like Cleveland's his next destination, assuming he clears waivers. So that would
I didn't see that he was, like, that was a thing that might happen him going to Cleveland, but that's interesting, because he was actually having a decent year, you know, for a pretty mediocre Mavs team.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, for a team that isn't going anywhere, he's had a good season. He's averaging about 14 and 6 assists right now. But again, it's going to be a key component for Cleveland, who's not really necessarily point guard. Their depth isn't at point guard, really. Moving to the West, Andy, you got one of the teams that, you know, you're looking at, LA. They're sitting in the 4 spot right now. A lot of it has to do mainly with Golden State, San Antonio, and Houston playing very well. It also has factors to do with injuries but between Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, they've missed significant time over the course of the season, but they're still holding water, mainly because of their play from their bench. They have a decently deep bench and haven't had to play tough opponents throughout the season. Assuming, let's say for example, that they bow out at the first round or second round again, is this experiment over between DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, or Chris Paul, or are they going to keep him on for one more try again?
I mean, I think it is. I mean, even most Doc said, I forget if it was past the year before, but, like, you know, teams get stagnant and you got to change things up. So, you know, I hate the mentality, I suppose. Well, I don't hate it because this is the entirety of the process, but we apply this thing to every team with, like, championship or bust. If you can't win a championship, you got to reconfigure yourself until you can. And, like, right now, there's just no way that their team is going to beat the Warriors or the Spurs, or probably Houston this year or going forward. So if they don't catch a little breaks or, you know, get hot in the playoffs, I don't see what the point of, you know, having an aging Chris Paul, having, you know, monster contracts for Blake and DeAndre, just clogging up spaces. I don't see how that's a viable path to continue going forward. I mean, you know, if you just want to get in the playoffs every year and put up a good fight in round 1 or 2, great. But if you're trying to move forward, I think you got to try and shift one of those. Now, the interesting question is, I don't know who you trade, because the best return you're going to get is for Blake Griffin, but he's also your best player. So I don't know if you really want to trade him as opposed to DeAndre or, you know, Chris, JJ Redick, whatever. But yeah, I think if they don't make significant noise in the playoffs this year, I think it's over for this iteration of the Clippers.
Yeah, and consider it's a franchise that historically has just been in the dumps, and for them to have these seasons that they've had the last 3, 4, 5 years of, you know, making it to the playoffs and second round exit, not being good enough, and being the best team in LA right now, that's kind of scary to think that they're going to blow it up. And it is unfortunate because, again, this team, you know, like other great teams, yes, they're great, but there are greater teams in front of them, which is why they're not going to get past maybe the first round or second round at best in the playoffs. Another team in the West, one of the teams that's actually doing a lot of, shocking a lot of people out in Utah, the Jazz have been phenomenal this season. Gordon Hayward's had a career year, 22 points. George Hill averaging almost 18 points a game. Rodney Hood playing a career year as well. And Rudy Gobert just playing phenomenal as well. Is this a Utah team that we can look forward to in the next couple of years and say this is the next great team that's going to compete with Golden State and San Antonio?
Well, I hope so, because they've been talking about for like 4 years as that team, you know, coming up. So hopefully we can finally have them come up and, you know, ascend to their place in the Western Conference. I think it just depends on the money, I suppose. Like, they got they're deep, right? But at some point, you know, Gordon Hayward's going to get paid. Like, I think he's an unrestricted free agent this summer. So they're going to have to pony up for him. So assuming the money works out, though, I think I see no reason why they're not going to be, you know, one of the top 4 in the West for the next couple of years. And the cool thing is that I feel like even now they like always play Golden State tough. They always play, you know, the Spurs tough. So it would be fun to have someone break into that upper tier a little bit different, switch it up so it's not the same 4 teams that are in the West.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think one of the things in the NBA this season, especially in maybe the last 2-3 years, is who's going to be there at the end. There's no shocking teams, which again may be good for in terms of the best being there. But it's kind of nice to see a up and coming team get to the Western Conference Finals. Like Utah's previous team with Carlos Boozer and Darren Williams. No one expected them to get the Western Conference Finals the one year that they did, losing to San Antonio. And then, of course, they blow it up and have to regroup and get a new set of players. Gordon Hayward obviously being the franchise guy. George Hill coming over from, I believe, Indiana, having, again, a great year. And again, it's like you said, it's a deep team. You have a lot of guys, like 5 or 6 guys, averaging between 6 and 10 points per game. So, again, it's not that these guys, it's a one big star behind Gordon Hayward and then just a bunch of scrubs. It's actually a pretty deep and quality team, and you could expect them, at least assuming in the next couple of years they may make a trade or may make a big move for a big name. But Utah isn't necessarily a sexy destination for free agents. It's just a team that they've built through the draft and gotten key components for them to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So, Andy, moving forward for the Western Conference, what do you expect in terms of expectations? You expect Golden State and San Antonio to be there? If not, who do you expect to be there at the end?
I think Houston has a really good shot. I don't know about getting past getting to the finals, but especially with Lou Williams to throw them in there, I feel like I would like to see them, and I think they could get to the Western Conference Finals. I think that would be a really fun shootout between whatever team they were playing there. I would assume it would be Golden State, but I sort of am almost hoping for Golden State Rockets Western Conference Finals. That's my goal, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, look, as a Rockets fan myself, I'm really excited to see what they can do. I think that it's a great opportunity for them to bounce back and see what they can do in the Western Conference Finals again. They had a great series against Golden State a couple years ago. We'll see what they can do now. Again, being San Antonio, being in the middle, and being that key component. First year without Tim Duncan, how do they compensate for leadership in the postseason? Obviously, they have Tony Parker and other key components, but Timmy's always been a guy that's been there. So what's going to happen come playoff time? Is Kawhi going to step up? Who's going to step up from San Antonio moving forward? So moving from the
I don't want to.
Go. Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I don't want to he's having a good season. But I feel like LaMarcus hasn't really been everything that we sort of all hoped he would be at the Spurs. So I think they're a little bit more vulnerable this year than they have been in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Not just for Tim Duncan, but just in general.
No, I agree. I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that they are a sharing team, whereas when he was in Portland, here he just was the man alongside Lillard, and again, it would be him a 1-2 combo, similar to Stockton and Malone. They'd throw the ball inside, and he would shoot the mid range very well. Now, being in San Antonio, it's a completely different offense, completely different set of rules for him to follow. So it's kind of, I guess, the adjustment period may be difficult, but. No, I completely agree. This is definitely not the San Antonio team that you would expect, even still having the second best record in the Western Conference.
It's a nice problem to have, having the second best record. Oh, man, they're not as good as we expected.
Yeah, I completely understand that. So going from the best to the worst, teams that overall have just completely been in the tank. As we mentioned at the top of the show, Andy, you have New York, who's just been horrific. The Blazers haven't been where they should have been, where we all thought they would be in terms of everyone crowning them as the next Golden State or a team that can compete with Golden State. New Orleans has had their issues, but obviously with that trade, they may bump them up. Minnesota's still young and moving forward. Of those couple teams between New York, Portland, New Orleans, and Minnesota, who has the brightest future moving forward?
Well, for me, it's between Minnesota or New Orleans. The Knicks definitely do not have the brightest future going forward. I have no idea what they're doing. And the Portland, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I didn't really understand the trade for Yusuf Nurkic. I know that things weren't going well this season, so switch it up. But I don't really feel like he addresses any of the problems that they have. Or the very big structural problem of just that your two best players also literally just don't play defense. So I would say between the two, I think for the next 5 to 6 years, Minnesota's
Yeah, no, I mean, I think long term I agree. Minnesota